So I've been wanting to make this video for a while because I have people ask me all the time about RED cameras, which sensor is in which body, is this camera worth using, can I use this in this scenario? And over the years, they've released so many different products, it can be really confusing. You can go to their website and they lay out all of the sensor sizes and details and technical information, but for a lot of people, it's a bit too technical, and understandably so. I think RED always pushes the boundaries with their technology, and the reason they do it, I think, is so that they can just release new cameras all the time, because it seems like their business model is to put out something new that renders the previous one obsolete. So I thought it would just be interesting to take like a little trip down memory lane, but also I'm gonna mark this up, so if you're interested in just like a specific camera or you wanna know about a specific thing, you should be able to just select that below. So my name is Remzi Atassi. I'm a filmmaker and director. Thanks for stopping by on this video. If you like what you're seeing, it's a new channel. Drop us a like, subscribe. We're gonna be putting out some new content about the technical side of filmmaking, the art of filmmaking, the business of filmmaking, and ways to improve your videos. Let's get to it. To start with like a broad overview, I guess, of the history, I can't remember the exact year, but I think around maybe like 2007, 2008, when the RED 1 was first coming out, it was a pretty big deal because it had the larger sensor, so you could get that shallower depth of field more easily. Obviously, it was the 5D Mark II that really democratized it, so a lot of people could afford it and access it for just a few $1,000s, but a few years before that, that's really where the RED 1 sits. They made that camera and opened up doors to a lot of filmmakers. At the time, it was still expensive. I think it was maybe like around $20,000 or something like that. And it was competing, really doing better. Many of these, you know, $200,000 plus cameras. So even where there were larger formats, they all looked really digital and just didn't have that kind of clean cinematic look, the really, you know, the really good highlight retention, the kind of fat files, the raw files that RED really pioneered. So it was really revolutionary at the time. Still at the point where I was in my career, it was out of reach, but then they kind of announced that they were gonna do this RED Scarlet, and so it began. They started releasing more products. So basically with RED, there is the RED 1, which is the first one. Then there is the DSMC1 system, let's call it. And that has the RED MX. And then the way RED works is usually they have like a body style that has all of the features and the ports and the IO and everything on it. And then the sensor is different, and the sensor changes often in the bodies. So with the DSMC1, this was the case. They released the Dragon sensor, which at this point a lot of people have heard of because it's been around for like, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. So it's been around for a long time. They put it in the DSMC1 in what they called the Epic Dragon. So that's a camera you might see on the used market now. You might be able to pick it up for $5,000 or $6,000 for a smaller package on like eBay or Red User or something like that, because they are getting old. But what's crazy is that technology is still used in some of their current cameras. So that's how far ahead they were at the time. It could do high frame rates. The Dragon was a 6K sensor. And so there are versions of the Epic which have the MX sensor, which is the previous sensor that was sort of the upgraded RED 1 sensor. So those are out there. Those are maybe not as good. So if you're looking at buying a used camera, look for those Epic Dragon X. That's the DSMC1 system that you want to get. There also are Scarlet Dragons, which I think shoot maybe like 5K, 24. Those can be had even cheaper, but they're not going to be able to do the 6K, and they can't do any of like the better frame rates. So really the main thing I want to talk about is the DSMC2 cameras, because those are more of the cameras that we might see on set these days. Obviously, there is now also the DSMC3, which is a much smaller product line. We'll talk about that too, but I have a DSMC2 camera. That's the one that I know maybe the best. That's also the one that I see a lot of confusion because they released so many sensors with these cameras. Initially, when they rolled out the DSMC2, they kept that Dragon sensor in it. And those were, I think, called the weapon. And so there are these like fiber weapons. Some of them have, different build quality, but they kept that Dragon sensor initially, and it was a 6K sensor. So those are out there. You don't see as many of those. You still will sometimes see the Scarlet-W a little bit. If you can get a good deal on it, it's actually still a really good camera. Like in 5K, it's Super 35, and it's really, the image quality from it's excellent. I shot a movie on it. You'll have no regrets using it. It's a really nice camera. So at this time, they kind of made two new sensors. The first one was the Helium, which was an 8K sensor that was never really loved. It was kind of a little bit noisy. It definitely wasn't good in low light. And even though it had a lot more resolution, I don't think that people liked working with the bigger file sizes, because at the time it was, computer technology was not as far along as it is now. And also it just didn't seem to offer like a ton of benefits over even the DSMC1 with the Dragon, because that 6K sensor in the Dragon is kind of evergreen. We still use that in a lot of cameras. So the Gemini then came out next, I believe. So the Gemini was 5K. It's a taller sensor, so it was a little bit better suited to anamorphic. And also it had the dual ISO, and it was one of the first cameras, maybe the first, to have this dual ISO feature that now seems pretty common with cameras. And I think the dual ISOs were maybe 800 and 4000, but for Red, which really were never good in low light, it was pretty awesome to be able to take it out in more of like a night type environment and come back again with really clean, really nice raw files. So I'm gonna take a quick aside, I guess, and talk about that, because that's another thing people have confusion about, the raw aspect. I'm gonna do another technical video that's gonna be kind of a walkthrough of the menus on the DSMC2 system. The advantage is that the color, the ISO, and the white balance are not baked in. You can change them. It's not truly raw on Red in the sense that it's uncompressed. It is actually a compressed form of raw, and that's, I think, pretty much Red's whole business model. That's the only reason that they're in business, is that they have this patent where they can record a certain type of compression internally in the camera. So Sony or Arri or nobody else can do this. And so Red really has the market locked down on the internal raw recording. And it's really fantastic. Like on the DSMC2, you can choose your compression ratio, like you want to do 6:1 or 8:1 or 10:1. And you still can have control over that metadata, the white balance, the ISO after the fact. And so in Premiere or any of your NLEs, there's usually like a panel where you can just go and control the metadata. That's definitely one of the big advantages to shooting on Red. So continuing in the DSMC2, Red sometimes lets you upgrade their cameras, or they offer some things to people that let them improve them. So they released a new camera at the time that they called the Dragon X, which was basically the 5K sensor, still the same sensor from the Epic that was now in the DSMC2 body. And the new body, they said that it could do some low light better, but really the main differences were it was smaller, it was lighter, it could record ProRes. I think it could do some higher frame rates just because of the way that the circuits and stuff inside of it worked. And it was modular and supported different accessories and stuff like that than the first one. So there were more modern accessories for the DSMC2. But that said, the sensor really is the same one that was in the Epic. And the Epic was 6K and the Dragon X was 5K. Now, again, you can have them cheap, so it's a pro tip out there if you want to try out the Red or you want to get into them. I don't think a lot of people know the difference between these cameras. That's partly why I'm making this video. So you might be able to actually get away with getting like a real rental on that camera still if you can find a clean one or one in pretty good condition. So Red then did this kind of strange, nice thing for those of us who had their cameras, which is that they unlocked the 6K on the Dragon. So the Dragon X that we had now could become the 6K Dragon X. I think if you had the Dragon X, it was a firmware upgrade from 5K to 6K, which is pretty wild because why didn't they just give us that to begin with? So at the time what I had was the Scarlet-W, which again, I mentioned, I shot a movie on it. Great camera. Those also can be had, I think, for relatively inexpensive, and they're great cameras. Like you could totally get away with using them on commercial sets or movies or whatever for almost anything. But then they did something which I guess was kind of nice, which was for, I think it was $5,000 at the time, a few years ago. They let us send the Scarlet-Ws in, and then they would send us back the Dragon X 6K. So that's the camera that I have now, the DSMC2 Dragon X. It's a 6K camera. I think it can do like 96 frames per second in 6K. I still use it a lot. I have an FX9, I have a bunch of Sony stuff. I use whatever people want to use as a DP, but as a director, like I really still enjoy using the Red whenever I can. It doesn't have the autofocus, it doesn't have a lot of these more modern features, but the image quality from it's really nice. And then at the end of the DSM-C2, they released the Monstro, which was a new 8K, like almost full frame. I think they called it VistaVision, which maybe that's a little bit more than full frame, but essentially a full frame camera that was in this DSM-C2 body. So that was the last camera of the DSM-C2. Of course, they only had it out for like less than a year before they started releasing new cameras. The new cameras that fit in like the DSM-C3 model are slightly different. They're a little bit less modular. They're more kind of all-in-one. So first there was the Komodo, which is a 6K camera that uses its own sensor. It was definitely more budget conscious. It's kind of an all-in-one. I think it has like a preview screen on it, and it has a little bit less IO, and it's maybe more of a crash cam, and it does support autofocus. So people really liked the Komodo. I think the price point was good. They couldn't make them fast enough. They were selling them at the time for maybe like $6,000 or $7,000. I think they might have even raised the price. But now there is the Raptor, which is the 8K VistaVision, essentially the Monstro sensor, but now in this new smaller camera body, the form factor. And these are great. I've used these on a few shoots. I have some friends who have them. I don't know them quite as well, so I can't maybe speak to them quite as well. It seems like they're pretty popular. I see them out there. I mean, you never know with Red how long it's gonna be until they release a new camera. If you're getting into the system right now, there's insane deals to be had on these DSM-C2 cameras. It kind of makes me sad because I have one and I see the price drop, but at this point, I'm not gonna sell it because I just enjoy using it and I think the image quality is great. But you can definitely find some fantastic deals. So look for those Scarlet-Ws, look for the Dragon X's, look for the Geminis if you wanna get a good deal. So I think that if you can find one of these old cameras, which are not really even that old, it's gonna be a winner for you. If you're shooting commercials, if you're shooting movies, if you're doing advertising, if you want to get that slow motion, fashion, beauty, music videos, they're great for that kind of stuff. For your interviews, B-roll, quick turn stuff, it's maybe not the best choice. There's ways you can make it work. There's advantages and disadvantages, but I will say that some of these cameras are a steal, so they're worth taking a look at. All right, friends, I think that is about it for today. That is an overview of the Red sensors throughout history. If you liked this video, please like it, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. I'm gonna be trying to produce some more of this content, some technical stuff, some stuff about the business of filmmaking, the art of filmmaking, and different ways to be able to improve your videos. So we'll see you in the next one.